getting there, Texas Paul. I'll be with you in just 1 second, my friend. All right, let's just get started. There's so much to cover. And 3, 2, 1, and time. Hey, right. Let's see. Mic is on. Show is running. It is the morning show. Waiting in the wings. We have our dear friend Texas Paul joining us this fine morning. Hi, everybody. If everybody's worried, yes, I'm feeling better. It's still, still healing. But I'm getting better by the day. It's nice. It's a good time. But let's see. Texas Paul, can you hear me? I can hear you. Let's see. Can we hear you? Checkity check.
Yeah, I can hear you, bud.
Excellent. Okay, cool. He's got his mic rolling through. And ladies and gentlemen, Texas Paul joining us from, I'm fairly certain either from Texas or from St. Paul. We'll figure out either way. We're just glad to have you. Lots to talk about, and welcome, by the way.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I have to say, for me, I mean, there's a lot of news going on. Texas Paul, I do a thing on Friday called Frid-Ai, which is kind of the latest AI news and stuff. Because I personally think, whether we're aware of it or not, one of the biggest news stories that's going to happen during the next election cycle is going to be about AI and its impact on people, because I think it's going to be a net positive, but that's only because you have to put people in charge who give a damn. That's why Democrats being considerate and focused and weighing the potential harm and the potential gains and, normal regulation of things like, I don't know, guns and nuclear waste, the kind of stuff where, there's definitely a use for some stuff, but you gotta weigh that against the the damage that it can do, as well, right? And AI is another one of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I'm with you. I think that people are absolutely, because look who's developing it. You got tech bros.
Yeah.
Tech bros are not known for their big picture. They're brilliant people. They are brilliant people, but they are hyper focused on what they're doing. And they rarely, if never, look at what's the damage of what I'm doing. Go back to Zuck and his original program at Harvard. That was just humiliating. And,
They, I would argue that that's how doctors were for a good long while before we set up an ethics thing, as in the the oath that they take ultimately of saying, first do no harm. That wasn't right out of the gate. That was an established aspect of the modern medical society. You know what I mean? Because it used to be first go to the leeches. Then, if that doesn't work, perhaps thrash the spirits out of their. They've got ill spirits in their colon, so thrash them with reeds until they come to the surface.
You know what I really like the feel of? Mercury. Let's try some of that. Let's
let's roll it around in your hands for a little while. Right? Yeah, it's pretty. It can't be bad. It looks pretty, right? So, and the AI aspect of it, yes, at CSL in the staff chat is writing, and scientists in general, yeah, for a long time. And I think maybe the tech bro thing happens because what they do most of the time is in a isolated environment, right? Because social media, for all the impact that it has had, and I mean, if we've learned anything about it, I think it's the power of propaganda is really what we're learning, is that we'd forgotten that propaganda, we overplayed, I think, what advertising was as propaganda for a long time. People just had this thing like, they're painting sex into the smoke coming out of the cigarette of Joe Camel, and that's all that's left of of the propaganda from World War II and what the Nazis were doing and what the Soviets were doing. That's all that's left of it. You know what I mean? And yet, the reality is it never went away. And we just kind of got savvy to a big chunk of it, almost nihilistic in the 90s, where we have anti-ads now. And then that, we were so anti-advertising that we had like no labels as a brand. No labels is a brand. It's just a label that calls itself no labels and thereby creates a label. Yeah, but so the right now, I don't know if you know this, MGM here in Las Vegas is under a cyber attack from a Russian group, hacker group.
Yeah, saw that.
Yeah, all of their elevators, they can't check people in. Their rewards program, which has like Caesars got hacked. Theirs has 65 million people in it, and it's got your social security and all this, because if you gamble, they have to pay you, and that has to go through your social security number. So all this information. Right.
I've got a question for you. You live in Las Vegas, man.
Yes, I do.
You know this a hell of a lot better than I do. But it is my understanding that, yes, casinos clean themselves up, but they still have security forces that are shady as fuck. And if you blackmail a casino, they've blackmailed 2 casinos now for what is it, $32 million.
Yeah.
You could not, if you gave me $100 million and said, I stole this from casinos in Vegas, I would say, keep your freaking money, dead man.
Oh, it's okay. So a couple things. I'm going to take out my patch because it's annoying.
The Russian mob's not going to protect you for this.
No,
nobody's going to protect you for this.
Just so you know, that's one of the reasons why they went after MGM, because MGM is one of the big corporate ones. It's got the least amount of like history. Caesars, on the other hand, still has a tremendous amount of gangster history that it has. And those folks are exactly like what you're talking about. The first time, it's interesting, they released this statement, the hackers did, and it essentially said, the first time we attacked, they didn't pay a ransom, we didn't ask for one because we just wanted to show our power, and now we demand this or we're not going to turn shit back on. MGM has not responded. And so they're like, kind of just saying, fuck you, we'll start from scratch. And so MGM has just basically unplugged all their computers, said we'll tough it out for a few days. Had a response group come in, maybe, guys with mustaches and broad shoulders that you're talking about come in. And you got to understand, like, these guys, Russian oligarchs invest in some of these casinos. So as much as they might be hitting and feeling like we're hitting an American company, and you're right.
See, that's what I was saying, Hal.
Yeah.
They think they're safe because they ran through a server in Moldova or the Czech Republic or something like that. I guarantee you the guy that runs that server right now is face down on a frickin' desk with both arms twisted behind his back.
Yeah.
Given the option of, do you want 20 more breaths or do you want 10 more breaths? You choose.
Right.
And if you'll tell me who is, if you'll give me the next link in the puzzle, and then they'll go to Britain, and then they'll go to 15 freaking countries, 20 freaking, they don't care. They, like that old line from Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite movies of all time. How far do you want to go with this? How far do I want to go with this? If he shows his face in Indochina, I want to, hiding in a bowl of rice to pop a cap in his ass. I mean, that's how far this is going to go.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot believe they were stupid enough to choose this target.
Oh, yeah. Well, they do similar stuff, with and like I said, there's a reason why they chose MGM as the primary, because they think it's so corporate that they can get, that they'll just handle it like a corporation does, like Disney would or something like that. I doubt it. I seriously doubt it.
You think a little bit might have been that they thought that these folks aren't going to call the feds in. These folks aren't going to call the cops in and have them look at their books. And, they're not going to open that door. Well, which I think they're insane for believing that.
Yeah, I agree. But in their statement, they said, we've checked and there's no insider trading going on in MGM. Like, it's their statement sounded like it was written by ChatGPT. It's just silly. If you get a chance to look at it online, but a lot of what they say is kind of them just oddly talking shit about the company. Like, we'll let you know if they're insider trading because if they don't pay our ransom, but they aren't. So, anyways, where were we? It's really bad. So that also makes me think that it might have been somebody else, like the North Koreans, because they do it all the time, and they feel safe to do a lot of shit because they're isolated. And they don't leave.
Yeah.
So those, those guys are one of the reasons why the North Koreans do some of the worst hacks that are out there is because the people that, they don't outsource any of it. Those people are sitting at a terminal, in somewhere in some random, bunker in North Korea, and they're never going to leave. Those people are going to die there. So the threat, it kind of reminds me of any of the Bond films, like one of my favorites, The World Is Not Enough, where the woman's like aiming her gun at the tanks on the hot air balloon, and he's like, don't do it, don't blow us up, I can protect you, and she goes, not from him, blam, and that's the beginning of the movie. That's I always thought that was kind of a ridiculous notion. Like, of course they can protect you from him because they'll just take you and put you inside MI6 headquarters until they go get the guy, and even if it takes 3 years, you'll be alive, for Christ's sake.
This is why Kim Jong-un travels in an armored train.
Yes.
He won't get on an airplane.
Nope. And he used to go in disguise to like Shanghai Disney and shit like that. He can't anymore. He went to Russia, but straight from Pyongyang to Russia via train, with his own train being put on the tracks, which is, and again, that's how Putin travels around. It's just, anyways, it's not going to work. I mean, I got news for you. It's good against conventional attacks. I suppose anti-javelins, right? You could argue that it's like a tank, but that's not going to help if one country just decides, well, in the middle of Siberia, no harm, no foul, kablooey. If the Chinese decides he's outlived his usefulness, he's dead. And they know that. So anyways, there's one of the other pieces of cyber news that came up is the Hunter Biden lawsuit against Garrett Ziegler. I don't know if you've seen this, but Garrett Ziegler worked in the Trump White House when they were releasing all this fake Hunter Biden stuff, this compromat, and that never compromised anything. This is a text, Paul. Maybe you can explain this to me. Help me out here. How do you blackmail someone with details that are already public?
That's why I danger-proofed myself. I went on all my social media and said, guess what, folks? I picked my nose.
Right.
Put something out there about me.
Yeah.
You can't blackmail me.
Nope.
My porn is freaky. It's really freaky. You know what I mean?
As it should be. Yeah. Everybody thinks that about their porn until they meet somebody else who likes something worse, and you're like, oh, no.
Wow.
My friend, what's up, Mr. Vanilla? Let me show you something else. I will say, I think both of us, our line is way before, say, Bosch's. I will just say that for the record. I can guarantee that. But freaky and consensual adults, I think, is the key thing. And
there you go.
Yeah, right.
There you
That's
go.
as long as it's that, who gives a shit? But I will
I
say,
won't even entertain my little person. You know, they say you're not supposed to use the M word anymore. I won't even entertain that porn fetish anymore, because I am not going to go on the internet and search little person porn. Because it will be adults. It will be 6 foot plus. Okay,
that's right.
Tall women porn.
Right. Tall women who look like they could put me in a headlock that I probably couldn't get out of. I mean, come at me.
Exactly.
Feel free to at me. And
crow's feet. Crow's feet. I want to see crow's feet.
It's like the most on the. This is the most. For the record, I guarantee Texas Paul has the most NPR Pornhub search results of anyone. Tweed sweaters, soft spoken.
It's funny because it's true.
Well, literate. Right. Yeah. And, like, if somebody looks over your shoulder and you were just typing Angela Lansbury, and you're like, get out of here. All right. Anyways. Don't yuck my yum. Miles is saying deep vein thrombosis porn. Oh yeah. So.
Oh God. Oh. Right. Oh.
Guilt. Yeah. Guilt is showing up a lot. Yeah. Hey. It's that goes back to a Steve Martin joke that he used in his stand-up for a long time that also ended up in Roxanne, which was, I like older women in their 60s, 70s, 80s because they really know what they're doing, right? That's yeah. So, right.
It's funny because it's true.
It's funny because it's true, yeah. And in the scene where he's just been abducted by aliens and he convinces the old ladies to go and basically interrupt Roxanne and Rick having sex, he wants to send them over there. He's like, aliens, they went over to Roxanne's house. They said they want to have sex with older women because, and I quote, they really know what they're doing. And one of the women, I'll never forget this. I love it so much. There's all these subtle lines in movies that always catch me. It's super funny. This one lady goes, oh, we do. Just of the women kind of gag. Oh, we do. Oh, so.
Oh my God! I apologize for sidetracking.
Johnny Million's going to be jealous. I will say this. Hold on, let me shut that door to my room so the cats don't wander in. So I a couple of things. I think we are entering an era. Look, 3 words, folks: content-aware Phil. And that is, I think, a character that I'm going to be doing coming forward. But it's also, content-aware Phil is a factor on Photoshop where you can pick something in a picture. The suit someone is wearing, the tie they're wearing, the hat they're wearing, or lack thereof. You can scribble out the top of their head with your finger and write in the image generator, porcupine hat. And a porcupine will appear on their head that looks almost photorealistic on the first try. You could tweak it a little bit and make it perfect. But I did yesterday, I think, let's see if I can still bring it up in here. It should be in my notes. I really explored this for the first time yesterday because I was like,
while you're looking that up, brother, to circle it all back around, though, that conversation we had, it was a good joke to say, okay, yeah, I'm danger proof, this, that, and the other. But this is what scares me about AI, is that they're writing programs that will skim through this conversation we're having right now just to find the right mouth positions. And it will automatically, on its own, piece together whatever verbiage they want coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And it will be natural. It will be normal. Right. It will be my image producing those words that I never said. And that's dangerous as hell, Hal. That really is.
So just so you know, I created this document yesterday, and it was just this, for the record, the original picture of this is Megyn Kelly and Trump or whatever, and I was just messing around. This is super quick. This is just, all Donald Trump was doing was sitting with his hands open like this. And she's sitting there with her arms crossed and her legs crossed with that piece of paper on her lap. That hat on her head looks pretty damn real if you look at it pretty close. She's wearing a witch hat. It even shadows onto her hair around here. The hat has a brim and there's a shadow on her hair from it. She has she had a drink glass, a water glass. I turned it into a skull goblet with smoke coming out. And again, I didn't try all that hard, but if I'd have jumped in there with my iPad pen and really went after it, it would have looked pretty damn real. And I was like, she had an exclusive interview with Donald Trump written right here. And I scratched all this out and said stacks of classified documents, and poof, this showed up. Now, it looked, they're too big. I could have shrunk it down, did it again, requested,
But how?
Yeah.
You were just playing around. You were having a good time.
Not even trying.
This wasn't a project. Imagine the AI software that a guy in Cupertino has.
Yes.
Because they think, wow, you can put yourself anywhere. What a great idea. Let's sell that. You can literally put yourself anywhere and not think about the fact that means someone that is my political enemy can put me anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't put that together. They're like, well, how many people are going to have that problem? Well, a lot of people are going to have that problem because you get some Karen at a school board meeting that doesn't like what you said, or doesn't like your kid, now has access to weapons grade freaking AI software that can put you anywhere.
And I find it okay. I'm gonna open up a site that I go to. Let's see. I think it's called. Yeah, here we go. This is a site called Futurepedia that I go to that has like the latest AI tools, and they update all the time. And when I originally started talking about this, much like when I first started talking about COVID and nobody else was discussing it, when I first started talking about AI, there were, I think, 9 pieces of software on this site, okay, that you could go to. It was ChatGPT, it was Midjourney, and a couple other like Lambda level big pieces of software. Let me show you this. Let me just show you real quick. We'll just do this. Hold on real quick. Let me move this out of the way. It's got a update on the page because there's so many, but and more, and more, and more. These are all either browser plugins, variations on AI. This is okay. I'll show you an example that I find really frightening and which will define in many ways. This is just one of many. This is called FineCam. And it says, transform your video calls and recordings with FineCam's advanced capabilities. And basically it takes anybody's Zoom call, their side, your side, whatever, and turns it into like an edited YouTube video. You can do this with anybody's video, or you can do it without a person. You could just go, I want a video about this topic that looks like it was written by a doctor, and it touts the value of ivermectin as a cure-all, right? And I want it to look like it was produced by a company, sort of the equivalent of the AMA, right? Like the level of the quality level of the AMA. Like
you want it to come out of JAMA, or I mean,
you want it to look like that it was genuine, that somebody passing along this would go, holy shit, that's real. And that's not even getting into like the like right now we're at text to audio, which can sound like anybody, or we're at text to video or text to pictures. Text to video is much harder to do just because of the volume of what it has to compute. But we're this close to that. We're going to jump a line and then it'll just zip forward. It's not the Moore's law aspect of this in AI is just not applicable. It happens so fucking fast that any advance will happen incredibly fast. Like here's Synthesis Studio. These are the guys. $27 a month. You can make virtual videos with these folks that look like, hi, I'm Jane, and this is our da-da-da-da. And it can be everything from like a sales pitch, like, congratulations, you won $1 million. Just put in your social security number here, and we'll send it to you, your bank information, and that kind of shit, right?
Folks really underestimate how freaking dangerous this is. I mean, take a look at Seb Gorka. All right. Just Seb Gorka, Mr. Pretend Doctor. His doctorate is a freaking joke. We were able to
Right.
fleece that out. And every time that guy's face pops up, we're able to remind people this guy is nobody. He is a
Yeah.
shyster from fucking Hungary. Pardon my
Yeah.
language, sorry. He's a
That's okay.
shyster from Hungary, and he's
Mhm.
nobody. Now imagine I'm Dr. Schwartzman.
Right.
Somebody you've never seen before, a face you've never seen before. Like you said, they look professional,
Yeah.
and they are spouting anti-vax nonsense.
Right.
They're spouting, for political gain. The Democrats are trying to shut everything down. The Democrats have contacted me, and they want me to tell you things that aren't true. Let me
Right.
tell you what's true. And it's,
And it's
you
not
know,
even somebody you could
people,
find and throw in jail because it's a synthetic person. It's a fake. It's
exactly.
entirely fake. Now, you and I might be at the quality level right now, savvy enough to spot who's a real person and who's not. In a couple of years, you won't be able to. You will not. And it's not like you can lock this person up. And if it's a group of hackers on some, random, Dr. Evil like island, they're going to be able to, crank this shit out. And by the way, they will do it. And I think the ultimate issue is that truth becomes it drives us into more like a nihilistic zone than it will into people falling for stuff, because nobody will want to believe anything. And that's, just as big a problem. When you can't, because eventually there's truth is genuine, and we will have fail safes to go, all right, there's a video going around and you need to know about it, and it's related to this entire webpage. This is fake. This person doesn't exist. Da, 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 da. And you'll be able to do like stories about that.
Yeah.
But people will go, is this real? Is this story real about the fake thing, or is that fake? Like, there's going to be people who are going to be lost to that. 10 to 15% of the populace is going to buy into that shit, just like the QAnon stuff, but easier. You know what I mean? It'll be easier to convince people because of the volume of stuff. So
and I don't mean to be hyperbolic here, Hal, because you're on a great topic here. You really are. I'm normally the guy that's telling people, hey, let me tell you why this isn't as big a problem as you think it is.
Right.
Let's just bring it down to reality. I'm telling you, folks, this is just the opposite, because with things like this, and call me a liar, Hal, if I'm wrong here, but every time guys like you and I look at this stuff and think about, man, they could really do all of this X, Y, and Z awful stuff with it, they always surprise us. There's always things that are way worse than we're even imagining that they do. I mean,
well, it's funny. It's interesting to me that we do have the West does have a sort of a little bit of a lead that's helpful in this, in that China cannot create its own AI because it is counterintuitive to the CCP's control methodology with the populace. So having an available AI like we have, where you could use it and create your own sub AIs and all that shit, which is what we have in the United States, they can't allow the public to do that. So they have eliminated, at least on the millions of people who would do it just on a serial killer impulse. The only place where they're a problem is in the governmental, countermeasures and active attack stuff that they've got. While the public in China, for example, can't use these things, they've got people assigned to doing it, and they're using our stuff. They're using these pieces of software to create exactly that stuff. Now, there's always going to be a cultural element where they don't quite get it right. There's always going to, be a little bit of a limit on that, but somebody's going to figure out how to do it really well. And there's going to be 3 or 4 major incidents where they're going to go, look what happened after George Floyd. What if we dump like 35 videos of cops that never existed, killing perps that never existed, that are clearly unarmed, underage, whatever, and just keep throwing them in so fast that in a 24-hour period, you have people rioting in the streets over, unarmed people who never existed, who were killed by police that never existed, in towns and cities that never had an incident like that. And it's right around the corner from everywhere. That's the concern. And then you just flood the zone with that shit. You rat fuck the entire media sphere that way. That's my concern, because it won't be after a couple days, like the Hunter Biden laptop story. if you get a good look at it, people go, this is obviously bullshit, right? You'll be able to tell because you'll know, somebody will go, there's no cop by that name, or there's no dead person, all that stuff. You'll be able to check at some point, and it'll have value, but it'll take some people longer than others to get there. But you'll have metadata to look at and all that kind of stuff. You'll have reports. Trust will become way more important, right? Even Fox News will be struggling against what their people believe. Because imagine you're Fox News and you're fed this shit. Like your followers, the maggots and the Republicans are fed this kind of video about somebody, Hunter Biden, whatever. And they're all in it, and they're coming to you going, why the fuck aren't you reporting on this? And you're going, because it's fake. We have to show you why. Because if we want to go after them when it's real, we have to be able to discern between the fake shit, or nobody's going to buy anything from us. And so they're going to end up having to focus more on truth, because the alternative is total decimation of any concept of fact-based reporting. Even as much as they bullshit, they couldn't get over this. They couldn't get past the fact that they could be that easily manipulated. And if it falls apart once, fine, but fool me once, you can't get fooled again. So you got 2 or 3 times, like nobody will tune into anything. And then Trump and his ilk talk about fake news all the fucking time. We ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, and the nefarious ways that they're going to use it aren't just like, hey, let's put something out. I'll give you a perfect example, and I've noticed this on, you probably got them in your social media right now too, is I get nonsensical responses that don't match up to topics that are kind of tongue-in-cheek. Oh yeah, I'm going to send you some money, you grifter. And then it's gotten more sophisticated, where they're like actually pretend to be followers, and I supported you, I sent you money, but you're a faker, and this and that.
Yeah,
that's happening to every one of us that are out there on the left on social media.
Yeah,
it's happening. It is a coordinated attack on the voice from the left. It is
right.
Yeah. As AI gets better and better, easier, more accessible. You can take a guy like, a big deal with me is Mrs. Texas Paul and my marriage. People know about it. We talk to each other, this, that, and the other. People in chat, she'll watch my show and comment in chat and stuff like that. Next thing you're going to see is she'll get a raft of freaking texts that are from me and some woman, and those are the kind of attacks that people haven't even envisioned yet. They're going to get into your personal life. They're going to try to, and AI gives them the ability to do it. I mean, I don't give a damn how much you trust your spouse. If you see your spouse kissing someone, and they can do that with AI. You see your spouse,
just blur it a little bit and blur it a little bit to where you lower the quality on purpose, so it looks like a picture that was taken randomly, as opposed to something that was taken up close and real. Because if it's too close, you'll go, that's not them. They've got 3 lips. AI isn't that good yet. Their fingers have 9. Their hands have 9 fingers. The other thing too is, Jesus, the amount of honeypotting and catfishing that's going on. Even the so the MGM thing. Back to that, started not because they hacked their way into a system. It's because they called up and posed as a person. They called the tech line. They went on LinkedIn, found us a person who worked at MGM on LinkedIn, who was like away on vacation or whatever, got their number, spoofed their number, called into the tech support line and said, I forgot my password. They reset the password with the person on the line, gave them their password and their thing. They were able to log in with this person's stuff and then just dump malware into the system. That is not high-end hacking. That is not a hacker group. That is fraud. That is literally like knocking on the door and saying, land shark, and they open the door and then, that's it. Okay, so, and on the AI scale, there's going to be a version of that where they can actually copy the person's voice using 11 Labs, or copy the person, like you said, on a video call that can be a little grainy. There was already the story where they were spoofing some woman's kid's voice and saying, I've been kidnapped and please help me. they've got me and they want money or they're going to kill me. And this poor woman was just freaking the fuck out. Luckily, her kid had been at school all day and they, she called and checked and they were still there. But what if her kid had just was on a trip someplace and was like, well, I won't be able to talk to you for the next 24 hours because we're going to be in a van driving to, someplace, or it's a school trip, wherever they're going. And it's that called during that part. During that section of it. Oh, holy shit, that's 24 hours, 48 hours where this woman might be gathering money, dropping it in a fucking, hollowed out stump someplace, and freaking the fuck out that somebody has their kid. Like that kind of stuff. And so I guess it boils down to how do you fix it? So there's a couple of ways you definitely do. Iris scans, and confirmation kind of stuff that has to be so high res that you can't, even saving the material, at least currently, isn't possible. Everybody, families everywhere, either getting Apple Watches or Fitbits or stuff that can be tracked, or putting a fucking air tag in your kid's shoe in case somebody snatches them up, so you can tell, okay, they're still at school or whatever. And even, even the kid doesn't know the air tags in their shoe, like that kind of stuff, so they can't kick off their shoes someplace and screw up the whole plan.
Yeah, I've actually thought that bio implants are the future as far as.
Well, and then look at the buck back from Republicans about that and vaccines, right? Is where you get to a situation where it gets so egregious, the potential for attack becomes so high that you're willing to do a version of security that's that high, that you have a bio implant that's only you, that's got an RFID code in it, that only, that's shielded, like we're all wearing a wristband, like in the future, until, we get past a certain point where,
well, they actually have high-end security now. I mean, like executives in major corporations and key personnel, they'll actually take in your wrist right here, and they'll do a small incision and put it. It's similar to how we chip dogs. It really is. It's very similar. But that person can walk up and they've got a reader on their desk, and they can just put their hand on their desk and they know they're there. If someone walks up and says, "We're your security," they've got to do a security check. I mean, you've got to know, that there is no.
So
fakey going on that
that's
level.
What the Alex Joneses of the world have been selling us for a long time. They're going to chip us, and they're going to, everybody's going to be scanned, and it's the mark of the beast and all that kind of stuff. When when the alternative is, okay, asshole, then we all just pants ourselves in a modern society against these attacks, because you're just like, I'd rather be, free, have my kids abducted, have my bank account drained, have my, my boss and my wife get pictures of me having sex with my boss's wife, full-fledged video that's, with no metadata, no nothing, or faked metadata, because they were able to do that without any referential point where I could go, nope, I was at this point on that exact day, and I could prove it, where there's like two factors of what kind of and again, it's like the government needs a warrant to find your location, but Apple can just look. It's a very strange world we live in.
Yeah, and I knew a guy from Navy intelligence that said this very similar thing to me. He said, they always make the old expression, daylight is the best cleanser,
disinfectant.
And he would best disinfectant. And his point was, the more open you are, the less they have to attack you with. I mean, and as far as just applying it to like security, applying it to security, the more open you are, you would think it'd be counterintuitive, because they're like, well, they'll know where you are, they know what you're doing, this, that, and the other. But if you're more trackable, if your family has access to a way to track you, to know where you are, you get that phone call that says, hey, when we do it with phones right now, but if we do it with bio implants, where, like you're talking about air tags, but if we all have bio implants and somebody says, I've kidnapped your kid. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Because I know where my kid is, and I know it sounds like anti-American. It does. Mm-hmm. Let everybody know where I am. But if everybody knows where you are, people can't spoof you. Like you just said, Hal. You know, he was having an affair. Oh, really? Because at that time, you and I were having dinner in Longview, Texas.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yep. Well, and that's the other aspect of being famous. Especially, I'm an odd kind of famous in that I have pockets of fans from way different stuff. It's not like I'm on one show forever. Yeah, thank you, Zoltan. But if you're on one show, only the fans of that one show will spot you when you're out and about. And a lot of other people will do a lot of who. And I'll give you, it's like political people. Like we know a lot of politically famous people, but if we ran into them, like we'd be like, oh shit. But other people would be like, who's that? I don't know. If they don't follow politics, they're not going to care. Or if you have a favorite series and you're like, oh, I love Criminal Minds or whatever, you'll know everybody on there. And if you ran into them or saw them out in public, you go, oh, I know them. But everybody around you who watches one other show instead won't know that person. But between I Love the 80s, 90s, and 70s on VH1, Talk Soup, Lab Rats, Queer as Folk, and Dude, Where's My Car, and Spider-Man 2, like I kind of got a lock on a fan base in almost every direction, from stoners to superhero fans to kids show to the gayest show ever. And I've got this broad spectrum of fans where if I go anywhere, their odds are somebody at a restaurant knows who I am. It happens all the time. And the long hair gives me a little bit of time. But the minute I start talking, people are like, oh my God, it's that guy. So an example was at the Metallica show on Saturday in Phoenix with my buddy Richard Hunter, who takes me down there, and Beto O'Rourke is there. He shows up with his kids and I think his nephew or something like that, or I don't know what the relation were that these kids were with him, but they're either his children or his sister's kids or something like that. But he brought them to the show. And they're all boys like 12 to 15 years old. And I walked over and I was like, hey, Beto, you mind before I take off, I get a picture with you? So I'm taking a picture with him and somebody standing near us is going, who's that? About Beto, because I'm getting a picture with him. And the guy goes, he's ran for office. His name's Beto. And the guy goes, who? And I was like, that's an example of just, if it's not your politics, you won't necessarily know. But but Beto's kids were like, you're Mr. Davenport, like from Lab Rats, right? Instant. Like they were, before I even went over to say hi, they were all like, no way, So when I'm out in public, I'm already in that situation. Like I never have the illusion that wherever I am, I'm not that fuck Big Brother. Little brother always knows where I am. Little brother can find me in any crowd. And so I kind of live that way, and you get used to it after a while. And there is that kind of like, well, shit, everybody knows where you are. So I don't know what option. I don't really have an option. So when people do have that option, I'm almost kind of amazed. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Yeah.
But the question is that we have been hearing this bullshit, like mark of the beast stuff. It's why we don't have a national ID card, to vote with and all that stuff, a federal ID, which would solve all the problems we have with voter ID, because it would be free from the federal government. No state could take it away from you. If you, as a citizen, if you had that would solve it. But they call it the mark of the beast, and all these Christian fascist, neo-Christian fascist or faux Christian fascist, all are against it because you have to have his mark so you cannot buy and sell things without the mark of the beast and all that shit. And like, motherfucker, it's just ID. Get over yourself. Is there a Star Trek sort of esque future where we just have, we got to have something along those lines, whether you're thumbprinting everywhere you go or you're, like full on DNA.
You know what pisses me off?
Yeah.
You know what pisses me off about this? Because you're right on. I mean, we need to be having these discussions right now. We do. The technology is developing. But you remember that movie Rising Sun with Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes?
Yes.
One of the lines that pissed me off when I first heard it, because I'm like, well, that's bullshit. But as I got older, I'm like, he's right. Where he says, we're playing that most of American of games. Catch up. I mean, that line right there is so freaking true because of the Republicans. Right. Democrats are younger. Democrats are more involved. They know what's going on.
Yeah,
they believe scientists when they come to them.
Right.
And they say, look, AI is a problem, and we need to start getting ahead of it. We need to start getting ahead of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the Republicans, we're going to have this stupid, and you've mentioned a couple of them already. We're going to have these stupid, idiotic conversations. They're trying to chip you.
Right.
No, they're offering you a free chip that you can get to make sure nobody can use AI to claim
it's not mandated.
They were you.
By the way, and I'll tell you what's going to happen too. It's just like your phone has gotten better and better security. At some point, you're with their love for Elon Musk, he's started pushing away from his little brain implant thing that he was pushing. But that's, as human beings, we're eventually going to get there. I'm sorry, maybe it's 150 years from now, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there slowly, bit by bit. And just like we've gone from having a flip phone that pretty much anybody standing next to you could fake your phone number and call somebody else, and it would seem like it was coming from your call because of the limited cell towers and the technology involved in that, to now where you've got encryption on your Apple iPhone specifically that's so good that the Chinese government officials use those phones, but they have to hide it because it's embarrassing to them that the Huawei phones are so easy to break into. So they use iPhones because they're the safest for real calls, but they use, Huawei's in public but they're the most hackable piece of shit 7-year-old technology out there.
I love that picture that went around. You probably saw it with Sergei Lavrov when he was sitting there complaining about Western this, that, and Western that, wearing his freaking Apple watch. He's got his iPhone on the table. He's wearing a shirt. Yeah. I had to laugh so freaking hard, man. It's like, oh yeah, the evil West, but hey,
where would you be without us?
Nobody's looking. Yeah.
Well, and here's the, this is a fascinating part. So I want to bring this up real quick. This is the Hunter Biden lawsuit that he filed against Garrett Ziegler. Now, Garrett Ziegler worked in like commerce and trade or whatever at the White House, which is really just, they gave him a no-look job so that he could be a rat fucker for Trump, is effectively what he was doing. And after he left, he was part of the people who were ginning up this bullshit laptop story. And for the record, there is no Hunter Biden laptop. There's a hard drive floating around called laptop. Don't fuck with me on this because I will gutter stomp anybody on this whole fucking thing. I've covered it way too many fucking times. It's become silly. It's embarrassing. People are embarrassing themselves when even Steve Bannon says they censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, not the Hunter Biden laptop. And there's a reason for that. They always add story to it because it's a story. It's a fiction. It's false. It's bullshit. And so there's a site called Marco Polo where they posted all this crap, right? And the Marco Polo site has the entire contents of the laptop hard drive that was floating around that Rudy Giuliani had. And you can look through all of it. You can look through everything in there. Pictures, videos, emails, everything they have. And again, how do you blackmail somebody with information that is public? I don't get it. Dude, thanks. It's called dead agenting. So there used to be there was a policy in the CIA for a long time, apparently. And I don't know. Oh, good. Phil's joining us. So Phil will be on in a moment after this as we get close to the bottom of the hour. And by the way, follow Texas Paul on all of his social media stuff and check out his show. And are you on Twitch, by the way? I forget.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Is it twitch.tv/Texas Paul? Or
I don't remember.
All right. We'll work on that. Kids today, man.
Phil, good to see you, my friend.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Phil's waiting in the wings. I'll bring him in a second, but I wanted to finish on this thought real quick. It's super important. So, the introduction to this the opening line: Garrett Ziegler is a zealot who has waged a sustained, unhinged, and obsessed campaign against plaintiff and the entire Biden family for more than 2 years. While defendant Ziegler is entitled to his extremist and counterfactual opinions, he has no right to engage in illegal activities to advance his right-wing agenda. Yet that is precisely what defendant Ziegler and his so-called nonprofit research group, Defendant ICU, doing business as Marco Polo, have done and have asserted they will continue to do in the future. So they have spent, quote, countless hours accessing, tampering with, manipulating, altering, copying, and damaging computer data they do not own and they claim to have obtained from hacking into plaintiff's iPhone data and from scouring a copy of a hard drive of what they claim to be plaintiff's laptop computer. That's the crucial part of it. Section 2 of this thing, this is Hunter Biden and his lawyers filing a civil lawsuit in California court against Garrett Ziegler and Marco Polo. And that's the second primary. The first thing is who the guy is. The second one is what they're engaged in. They are unlawful under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. They are under California's Computer Data Access and Fraud Act and California's unfair competition law, which is like releasing other people's business, stuff in whole or in part and fucking with them. Mm-hmm. But the essence of it is, this part is the part that I particularly, tweaks my nipples, which is from scouring a copy of the hard drive of the hard drive that they claim to be plaintiff's laptop computer. They even put laptop in fucking quotes. And that to me is where we are in this technology, where we are in this reality. Because, again, all the emails you've seen that they've been holding up, all the text messages, the WhatsApp messages, all the shit they're holding up, no metadata at all. They don't show you the metadata. And when they, when asked to, they will not. That's a red flag for me in an era where we only have a few things that can prove something is authentic. And when the people who are using it, who want to use it as evidence against someone else, refuse to put forward that information, refuse to do it, that they already have, by the way. It's not like Comer doesn't have the metadata from the WhatsApp message stuff or that's there. They just know if they post it, people will go, wait a fucking second. That's not real. That's not the original. That can't possibly be... some of it's missing, all the shit they pulled with.
When you added an attachment to an email that was from 2 years ago, but the attachment was added 6 weeks ago,
right?
Red flag. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So,
but you know what? Not to be petty, but if you look at Garrett Ziegler, just look at him, and you're like, yeah, this is that guy. This is that guy. He is the young Republicans in your high school, those dickheads that walked around that were uptight, incels, jerk-offs. You take one look at Garrett Ziegler and you're like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
I know that guy. I know exactly who that guy is.
He and Nick Fuentes leg wrestle, to see who doesn't have to pay for, lunch. I think the fact that Hunter Biden and his lawyers have filed a lawsuit, and that's the language they're using, which, by the way, completely parallels the language I have been using, thank you very much, this entire time. And add on top of that they put not only altering, tampering with, manipulating, accessing, which is breaking into shit. Not only that, copying and damaging computer data, which means exculpatory emails or contextual emails or contextual parts of the video that would undermine the narrative they are putting forward have been gotten rid of. That in and of itself. And let me tell you, if any maggot out there wants this hard drive to be used in a court of law anywhere, no one is fucking safe from the very things that you and I have been talking about. No one.
I've got a question for you, and maybe Phil can chime in on this. But haven't they tracked this hard drive back to a stay that Hunter Biden did in
Ukraine?
It was part of Ukraine or Hungary. I can't remember which one. You have to forgive me. I'm tongue-tied on this one. But hadn't they tracked this back to, they've got a snapshot time frame of the data they have so that they know, okay, this is when it was copied because there isn't this data that they're talking about.
Yes.
So they've had a decent cyber.
Well, the Washington Post had the worst titled article, How the Washington Post Authenticated the Hunter Biden Laptop. And spoiler alert, they didn't authenticate it. As a matter of fact, they disauthenticated it. Their own experts said, and I quote, it was a forensic nightmare, that the data available on the crucial emails there was no metadata, or stuff had been copied so many times it was impossible to find the original IP addresses from where shit had been sent and received. Now, the Bed Bath & Beyond coupons that were included in it were sent out on that date. That's all you know. That's how they authenticated it. They authenticated it by junk email. The junk email campaigns went out on a certain date, and therefore they were on there. They didn't do it from the metadata in the junk email. That's the other thing. They didn't go, oh, this Bed Bath & Beyond, if you look at its metadata, says it was sent on. All they look at is they find another hard drive where that, or somebody else got it, or they're on the fucking Bed Bath & Beyond email list, and they go check that date and go, yep, that one was sent out on this date. Never mind the fact that this one was fucking copied and popped onto there, and that it was never put on in order. It didn't show up on the day it was supposed to. Never mind all that. But they did not check the metadata of those things themselves. They just timed it to, there was an earthquake on this date and an earthquake mentioned in an email here. Therefore, the rest of it must be true. That was it. That was their
Which
whole
is
thing
what a security agency would do if you wanted to put something that wouldn't pass, may not pass deep scrutiny, but you know, to the layperson that wants to put something out, you would take a copy of Bed Bath & Beyond Scoop On from this day, and you would just pop it into something and say, okay, yeah, well, that happened on the same day. Like holding up a newspaper is bullshit authentication. You know what I mean? Because, and then you don't look when that ad was actually inserted onto that email or onto that hard drive. You don't look at that date. You just look at the date of the ad, which is just stupid, folks.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just idiocy. And our intelligence agencies, the FBI, all the shit that people give the FBI, they've got some really good tech people working for them.
Yes, they do. By the way,
and they knocked it. And that's why there are no cases. They're going to charge Hunter Biden. Hey, Phil.
Yeah.
They're going to charge Hunter Biden with a BS gun charge over a gun that he owned for 11 days that he got rid of himself voluntarily. If you think that they have this laptop and any of it's genuine, they would be all over it.
Well,
and they're not.
Yeah. There's a myriad of problems with trying to use it for evidence, and not the least of which, again, because you can't verify where it came from. If there's a single, I'll tell you what, if there's a single email that they could point to, a single one, where they go, there is either insufficient metadata on this file, has either been removed or modified to make it look like it was sent on a certain day or to eliminate the date it was actually sent. And we can prove one thing. We don't have to prove the rest of the hard drive is manipulated. We can just prove that somebody did it. Therefore, the whole hard drive gets thrown out. Never mind the fact that fucking Rudy Giuliani's chain of evidence is ass. Any first year.
Yeah, he got it from Pavel Fuchs in Kharkiv.
Right.
He got it from Pavel Fuchs in Kharkiv.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can get the whole thing thrown out. And that's why the IRS whistleblowers are fucking idiots, because they wanted it included in the case. They wanted to reference the big guy in those emails. Well, if you do that, then the judge will say, where'd you get that from? They go, well, the internet. It's from this thing or these files that are from the laptop. And he'll go, you can't use those. So fruit of the poison tree, everything else gets thrown out. If you found your way to these records by going through that shit, it all goes. And so Weiss was trying to keep his case from getting destroyed. So, Phil, one of the things that
there's also there's also the problem that the FBI has is that they can't reveal a lot of what they know, because this is we're in the middle of an information war with Russia, and we have been for a very long period of time.
Yeah,
and if the FBI were to, I am positive that the FBI knows exactly what is going on with the laptop, with all the information warfare that's going on, the 2016 election, but they can't reveal it to the public for a variety of reasons, not least of which is you're going to betray your sources.
Yes.
And your operations and all the rest of it. But make no mistake about it, all of our intelligence agencies are involved in a war with Russia. There is an information war that has been going on for a very long time and is going on right now.
Yeah.
The kinetic side of it is what's happening here in Ukraine. But what's happening in the information sphere, which gets into people's minds, is just, if not more, insidious. It's
and you can bait them. Let's say I'm trying to figure out how to. I know you've got spies in my circle, so one of the ways I bait you out into the open is by throwing shit into the sphere that you'll reference and that's embarrassing or that you have to deal with in public. Abu Ghraib, those kind of things. You help toss that up so that part of how stuff got out can be linked back to, well, this came because of this person, and WikiLeaks is in contact with this person, and therefore, how do you know that? Well, there's only 3 people around me who could possibly know that got out, and if they have that information, I know this dude has it. Therefore, that's the guy I throw a bag over his head and drag him out of the room. And that's what happened in Russia, during, the last decade or so. We had several times where, especially when Trump was in office, where, Putin's guys are getting dragged out of the fucking room because somebody is spilling the fucking beans about who our source is inside the room. Leading up to, by the way, an attack on Ukraine. That this was always part of the plan, that of course it would have happened if Trump had a second round. It just would have happened easier for him and quicker, and we would have been on our heels and never and dug in to do bullshit. If Trump was in office, they'd have just taken it. It would have been over in a matter of days. And you go, well, it's really just theirs. Anyways, what's for lunch? That would have been the extent of the American reaction to the Ukraine war had Trump been in office. And they knew that. And leading up to it, yeah.
Yeah, Moscow's had designs on this war since the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Ukraine is integral to their, and we've talked about this many times, but it's still true. It's integral to their sense of self as empire. They were always going to come here. They were always going to come here, and they were always going to try and take this place back. They wanted to do it by corruption and by infiltrating with their own oligarchs, and keeping this place with its arms tied behind its back because of the corruption that they were in. So they tried that failed. Their various attempts at destroying Ukrainian democracy failed, and then they got Trump into the White House, and then that turned out the way that turned out,
right?
And
it's debatable. It's debatable whether it was a net plus for them ultimately, or it was a really big action that failed in ultimately what it was seeking to do. I was real quick because you're here, and Texas Paul, I'd love you to if you have any questions for Phil, feel free to chime in.
Sure.
But I covered this thing about Shokin and the Diamond prosecutors. After the removal of Shokin, which, by the way, he was not fired by Joe Biden. He was not even fired by Petro Poroshenko. He was voted out by Parliament. Petro Poroshenko was not holding the vote on getting rid of him. They had promised to do so. And again, if they'd have voted to keep him in, he would have stayed ultimately. Biden's thing about getting rid of him would have, if the Parliament had kept him in, they would have kind of shrugged it off and went, all right, I guess you guys aren't ready to move to that point. We're a little worried, but we'll keep moving forward. But after he was removed, the following July, like 3 months later, they busted his top investigator, Shokin's top investigator, and another guy I think it was in Odessa, or it was down that way, with $400,000 in cash, a bunch of diamonds, and a Kalashnikov in this bribery scheme. By the way, bribery at the end of a fucking gun. I might add. This was Shokin's main dude, where they would go, and the idea that Zlochevsky liked Shokin where he was because the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Right?
Yeah. Well, Poroshenko's regime, was deeply corrupt. Poroshenko was an oligarch. He rose to prominence because he was, among other things, a chocolatier. That's right. There across the street from me right now is one of Poroshenko's chocolate stores. The guy,
Jesus Christ, Willy Wonka really is a horror movie.
he's a problem. I'd say he's problematic. Is me being polite,
right?
That's why Zelensky rose to prominence himself, because he was showing on his sitcom.
Yeah, he was spoofing it. He was literally sort of
spoofing
playing
all the corruption in the country, and not just spoofing it, but also giving voice to those people who were
Daily Show style,
deeply frustrated. Right, exactly. And so you have to understand that period of time between 2014, when the annexation of Crimea and the war out in the east erupted because of the Maidan protests. The period between that, 2014, and 2022, when the full-scale invasion happened,
Mm-hmm.
was, I mean, I reckon I compare it to North Africa during Vichy France, depicted in Casablanca,
Right,
where there's all sorts of nefarious guys doing really
it's
underhanded
the
things.
crossroads of Eastern European corruption.
That's right. And I would come here during those years, and it would just be surreal. And it got worse and worse and worse. There was a Marine who was killed here, a Marine who was an embassy guard, and she was killed here under very, very suspicious circumstances. And by that, I mean suspicious in the sense of it could have been an accident. But there was all sorts of stuff going on. You could not come here, go into a restaurant or a bar and not get this atmosphere of like somebody's messing around. There's all sorts of interests here. There's guys who are bagmen. There are guys who are pursuing political interests. There are guys who are trying to undermine it for the Russians. There are Americans. There are Brits. Everybody's got something going on. It was that kind of atmosphere here. So the fact that all of this comes out of, various interests for Trump or the Kremlin coming here and picking up laptops or getting
hard drives called laptop.
Right, exactly. Or just getting little pieces of information dripped into their ear, and then they go back to Washington or London, Brussels or what have you.
Right.
It was this place was a hotbed of intrigue, and nothing that comes out of that period of time should be taken on face value. So,
imagine for a second, though. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Imagine for a second just how the FSB felt when they got their hands on Rudy Giuliani. I mean, because that guy was so freaking arrogant, man. He was so freaking arrogant. He still is. And, here's a glass of scotch, Rudy. You're a great guy. You're amazing. Let's give you some cash because we just think that you're so amazing and the stuff that you can tell us is so amazing. And Rudy's like, yep. I mean, sincerely, in his heart of hearts, yep, I'm amazing. Yep. They're really, because of me, man. They love me. And how easy it is to make Rudy Giuliani a conduit into the Republican Party. I mean, can you imagine how the people that run Pavel Fuchs felt about that? I mean, they had to jerk off in their office, man. They literally had to jerk off in their office.
If you don't think, I mean, knowing Giuliani, and the Borat,
Jesus,
that incident with where he thought
the
it was a
15-year-old girl
or whatever.
Yeah,
he thought this 22-year-old was 15, and he still was kind of like, if you don't think now, I don't want to take this into the gutter, but it is an indisputable fact that Ukrainian women are stunningly beautiful. They have it's a worldwide reputation.
Same with Russian women.
Well, even the Russians would defer to Ukraine. When I used to live in Moscow, every time I went to Kiev, they were like, "You're going to come back married," because Ukrainian women are. I got a buddy of mine who argues with me about this, but it's actually sad why that's the case. It's because all the men were killed in the 20th century, so that the ones that survived had the pick of all the beautiful women. So the gene pool.
It's also the Ukraine is the crossroads of so much culture, and it's proven the more you intermix cultures, the more beautiful the features become.
Absolutely.
I am the crossroad of a myriad of cultures.
I'm getting off the point slightly in that, and I'm not being glib, and I'm not being kind of like lascivious. These are beautiful, beautiful women, and they are used as honeypots. It is a real common thing to happen. So if you don't think that Giuliani dipped his wick in Kiev,
well, look at
Scott Ritter. There wasn't a video camera behind the two-way mirror.
Scott Ritter gets busted for talking to a woman he thought was 15, 14 years old, 15, whatever. He does 2 fucking years for this shit. you don't think that after he was assigned in Russia for a good long while, he's living there. If he already had that taste, he certainly fucking developed it while he was there and became normalized where he felt like, oh, I'll give it a shot while I'm in the States, where the rules are a lot more strict. We don't put up with that shit the same way they do in the former Soviet Union. And especially during that fucking time. And this is about the time you're talking about in Ukraine, still under Yanukovych. And so, like, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, Trump, this is around the time when Trump is partying with Epstein for 2 fucking decades. A couple of times he goes to Russia. One of them's with, like, the Miss Teen USA or the Miss Teen World, whatever thing he was doing, where he's bragging about barging in on 15-year-old girls while they're changing, checking their mouths, checking their teeth, like making them open their mouths. Like, it's fucking creepy. And again, that goes to, do they have, in the case of someone like Scott Ritter, do they have compromise on you that makes you act a certain way, or are you acting that way for the promise of getting more of that when you go there? If you're a good boy, they'll reward you when you get there. Either way, it's fucking gross. But there's a very big distinction between the control factor on this. Honeypotting versus, dude, you do that for us. Hell, come back over. I got a line of 13-year-olds for you. And that's the
arrogant
scary part.
Men are the easiest targets. They are the easiest targets. I mean, look at McGonigal up in New York. They got Rudy's buddy up in Trump land that's just got busted, FBI counterintelligence agent. Same thing. This guy who is just a milquetoast, middle-aged white guy, walks around, struts around in suits he could never frickin' afford, thinking he is the greatest thing that ever happened, thinks he's brilliant, was so easy to flip, came so freaking cheap, because all they told him was, man, you're amazing, dude.
Right.
You're amazing. We cannot believe how smart you are. And he's like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. That's me. Right. They want me for me. They love me.
Trump is the king of that kind of manipulation. He's the perfect mark for that kind of personal inflation.
And they're so good at it. They're so good at it. The Russian intelligence guys are experts at it, whether it's money, drugs, or, some other substance abuse issue, or family issues, or they'll find a way in. And remember, this place used to be in this period of time that I was talking about, and actually prior to it as well, this was a competitor for like Phuket or some of the Latin American countries where sex tourism, sadly is a big industry.
Right.
Ukraine was becoming a center for sex tourism.
It's one of the ways Russia was undermining it.
Yep. And if you were here, and and a beautiful woman sidled up to you, a 20-year-old beautiful Ukrainian woman sidled up to you in a bar and fed your ego, and you're one of these guys that Paul's describing, which is a dime a dozen. It's like picking low-hanging fruit. It's so easy. And then they've got you. Because then it's on video, and then they know that and you're right, Hal, there's also this is not mutually exclusive, where it's like, it could be also come and we'll cater to your, peccadillos. That's not mutually exclusive in that once they've got you, they got you.
Right. So that's how you do it.
But they're experts at it. Malcolm Nance used, one time I was sitting down with Malcolm, having a beer and a steak out in Lviv. And I remember getting into a conversation with him where, as a naval intelligence officer, back when he was on board ship, every port of call, you would be almost guaranteed to run into somebody who was, and it was usually a honeypot, connected to the KGB. Because they can't match us with military. So what they do is they focus on intelligence, and they're really, really good at it. I used to say better than Western intelligence, but I've seen them get really sloppy recently. So I don't know how good they are anymore.
They've gotten it easy because the Rudy Giuliani's and the Donald Trumps of the world are easy to bait in that situation. These guys are gross. They're they'll take low.
Well, the other contributing factors, they're losing their damn minds.
Well, Hal, what were we talking about earlier about these tech bros?
Yeah.
What we were talking about earlier about these tech bros and how they can't see the big picture. They infected our intelligence operations. SIGINT became God. That was where all the money went. That's where all the efforts went, and to the detriment of our human intelligence. And we got out of the human game. We really did. And the Russians were like, great. Great, because I've got Rudy Giuliani here over in Ukraine that for like a glass of scotch and a few compliments, I can get him to spill the beans on any damn thing. And it's way more valuable than, this phone call data that you just picked up.
I'll put it this way.
I didn't say shit on that phone call.
Let me put it this way. America, bless her heart, and Canada and Mexico and this general surrounding area, the neighborhood that we're all in over here, has some beautiful, smart, articulate, savvy, mom material women in it. Lots of them. They outnumber us. We've got more women than we've got men in our country. Canada's the same way. And yet, I meet this dude who's part of a hacker team. He's part of a red team. And a really nice guy, American, got moved to the DC area. Just has a Russian wife. Just has just managed to run into this one, and sparks flew, and no pun intended, and then just became, this, like, what are the odds that of all the countries in the world, this dude and 3 other people on his team have Russian wives?
Mm-hmm.
And then never mind the fact that Trump Tower Miami is basically a prenatal ward for Russian anchor babies. These women who come here and have these children with dual citizenship.
Oh, I always wanted to do that story.
They can come and go as they do, right? So I
pitched that story to every news organization I could speak to. Nobody wanted to do it.
It's weird.
It's a great story where they openly advertise in Russian newspapers.
Yeah.
We'll send you to the States. You can have your baby in Miami, and he'll be a citizen, and then you can become a citizen. It's right. It's crazy.
And it's crazy. Trump Tower
I'm trying to confirm this. I'm trying. Yeah. Is O'Keefe at Veritas? Is he have a Russian? Because it's so hard to remember who has a Russian wife.
Right.
And who doesn't.
Yeah. Well, he's no longer at Project Veritas anymore.
No, he isn't at Veritas.
Him.
I know, but the founder of Veritas, did he not have? I could have sworn he was one of them as well. But you really can go through especially the right wing,
especially Republicans on the down low. A lot of gay Republicans have Russian wives, as because they serve 2 purposes.
Beards.
Yeah, you've got a beard and nobody would be, if you got a wife that hot, clearly you're straight. That's which is so ironically hilarious. As anybody who ever met anyone of Andy Dick's early girlfriends will know. Beautiful, very confused.
It is driving me nuts that I cannot remember his name. He just had a cancer thing that everybody was like, oh, the poor guy has cancer. We can't beat up on him. And his wife is a frickin' Russian honeypot. I'm like, there is no way this guy naturally landed this wife because she looks like a frickin' supermodel. She's highly educated. She's a 10 and he's a frickin' toad. Yeah. And I cannot remember. It's driving me crazy. I can't pull his name up.
Butina.
Yeah, Elena Butina. Yeah,
going through the ranks of the NRA, sleeping with, whoever. I mean, it's just.
And turning the NRA into a Russian election money laundering organization more than anything else, because the fucking idea that the NRA would have get-togethers in Russia with, unironically, considering the laws about guns in Russia. Right. Your ammunition, you have to, if you leave with 10 bullets, you better come back with 9 shells. and the bullet you didn't fire, you're in deep shit. You have to have a rifle license for 5 years before you can even apply for a handgun license. Your license can be taken away at any time, just randomly. They don't even have to give you a fucking reason. It's like terms of service on a social media website as opposed to a right. And that and they're never going to change. As a matter of fact, if they're going to do, if anything, they're going to get more stringent over time. And yet the NRA is going, we love Russia. We love like this is the kind of freedom we need. Blah blah blah. Like it's
God,
just shocking.
Killing me. I can't remember his name. It looks like James Spader. It looks like James Spader, the old bloated James Spader.
Late,
you know what
stages.
I mean? God, it's killing me. I can't remember his name.
Not sex lies and videotape. James Spader. Right.
What's in what context, Paul? Maybe
he was, you know, you've got the Trump circle.
Yeah.
You got the Boris Epsteins and all these, which by the way, Boris was born in Russia. You know, you got the Trump circle. He was the next tier out where you had the money people pumping money into the Trump circle. And I cannot remember his freaking name. And it drives me nuts when this happens, man. I have this like OCD thing that when I can't I can pull a face up, I can actually pull, remember the damn news article where there's a picture of him sitting in his back, you know, in a cardigan in his backyard talking about, oh, the poor guy I think he had leukemia or something like that. And he's like, oh, we need to feel sorry for this fucker. And I'm like, no, we don't. This dude is a freaking, he is handled by the FSB.
I don't think he should have taken that cute little cottage outside of Chernobyl back in the day. Apparently. Couple of things.
And also, I found it. It's not O'Keefe over at Veritas. It's Spencer. It's Richard Spencer. I'm thinking about.
Yes.
Who's got a Russian wife.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the Russian Spencer, the friggin' Nazi.
Yeah. Which is so okay. A couple of things.
They're all over the place.
A couple of pieces of dropping news that I want to bring because there's a lot going on at in Ukraine proper right now. One of them is that a Russian citizen has just been found guilty for treason in their court in absentia because they smuggled missile technology to the United States. Oh, how the tables have turned, ladies and gentlemen. A guy named Sergei Kabanov was given a 12.5-year jail sentence. He's not there, obviously, and they can't get him. Sent products used in missile technology of the armed forces of the Russian Federation to interest of the American company Victory Procurement Services in Huntsville, Alabama, Rocket City, which where all the post-Nazi rocket scientists went because Huntsville looks like Deutschland in the springtime. If you don't believe me, go there and you'll go, fuck. If you've ever been to Germany, you'll go, you're right. Huntsville looks fucking like Germany. The architecture, everything. It's hilarious. Werner von Braun, you know. But controlled by the U.S. Department of Defense. News agency Interfax cited the press service of Russia's federal security agency, the FSB, as saying, Kavanagh acted on the instructions of U.S. intelligence services, organized a smuggling channel of supply of Russian military products to the United States. Boo fuckity who. The other thing is... Yep.
Oh, that lovely kinjal that you have. Maybe that's why we're knocking kinjals out of the sky.
Out of the air, so right, exactly. And then the Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade has liberated Andriivka. The Russian brigade is destroyed, and what's left of it is in retreat. And my favorite story, before we'll talk about these things, is that the Russian fleet is being destroyed by guys on jet skis. The Ukrainians are sending jet skis, both as drones, modified drones, and actual guys on jet skis out. And that was related to, they lost, you know, in that port, they lost a submarine and a warship that were in dry dock.
And a troop. That's right.
Lost a fucking sub.
How sweet is it that it was a kilo sub named the Rostov-on-Don?
Don, right? Same city as it.
Very nice. Poetic justice.
Yes.
Both of them, well, now, and apparently a third missile cruiser today apparently was hit. But you know, the fact that they hit in dry dock, hit a submarine, they hit a troop landing vessel, which could have been used for an amphibious assault. And now, again, apparently today they hit a missile cruiser, which has been lobbing cruise missiles into Ukraine. The Black Sea Fleet is getting pummeled, absolutely pummeled. I for one am all here for it. Now the submarine is great because that's been a major problem because you can't Russia's surface fleet, if it comes anywhere near the coastline controlled by Ukraine,
they can hit it.
Ukraine has so many ship, surface to ship, anti-ship
Storm Shadows
here.
Man.
Yeah,
among other things. But yeah, British Storm Shadows is a French system. The Germans are about to start giving Taurus as soon as we make the announcement that the ATACMS are coming, which is something I didn't check today, and I'm just realizing whether or not that's been formalized, whether or not we're sending the ATACMS.
Yes, they are.
But yeah,
Washington will send ATACMS long-range missiles to Ukraine this fall. Yeah, according to the Wall Street Journal, it's official.
Pentagon?
Yeah,
Pentagon
through their source.
or White House? But a source, not an official announcement.
Yeah,
see, this is the thing. I'm still waiting on.
Yes.
They will have to put out an official announcement.
Right.
Somebody will, either the White House or the Pentagon, will have to officially put out a statement. And until that time, I'm keeping my powder dry.
Right.
But I hope
their source is saying Biden is waiting for the paperwork. Essentially, he's ready to sign it, according to their source in the White House. It's just a matter of
and they should have them.
I got a theory that it's broom and pail, that the ATACMS are broom and pail, that they think they're going to bust through without them, and then the ATACMS will be used to basically dust the Republicans. Listen to me. The Russians out of Western Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine over the course of the next few months.
And Crimea, and put Crimea.
Yep. Yes.
I have to tell you, I've had a bear get off my chest because I was going in an ACD frenzy freak out. Michael Caputo. My beautiful wife just walked in, opened the door, held up a sign, said Michael Caputo. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Caputo.
There's no way, no how that Michael Caputo is not a honeypot.
On the short line,
and he is. Oh yeah, and he is deep inside the Republican establishment. He really is. But anyways, you were talking about the ATACMS, and Phil, I wanted to ask you this.
Sure, anything, Paul.
They are running down. They're running. They broke east, curling back around to try to cut the highway off. Mm-hmm. The Sea of Azov. I try to tell people it is super shallow. You're not going to have naval activity in the Sea of Azov right there. But if we give them the ATACMS, they have hyper accurate ability to not just sit on that highway that runs between Rostov-on-Don and Melitopol. They have the ability to absolutely decimate that damn bridge, because they can choose exactly which span do you want to take out. I mean, because the ATACMS are that damn good.
Yeah,
and they have got a substantial warhead. If you haven't seen the ATACMS are basically, because the HIMARS system is modular, you can take out the multi-launch HIMARS, which I think hold the military anorak kind of like nerdy guys are going to kill me. I think it's the normal payload is 8. ATACMS are 2. Because they're so large, and they can, they fly a good distance, but they also carry a much more substantial warhead. So, yeah, absolutely, the Ukrainians should be getting ATACMS. They should have already had it, frankly.
Right.
Frankly, but yeah, Paul, they're. I don't know what the next month is going to hold, and I'm talking to you today, by the way, with a really bad sinus problem because the weather has changed here, and we are definitely going out of summer. We are headed towards autumn.
Yeah.
We are getting heavy overcast, little bit of the last little bits of rain. So the Ukrainians don't have forever to accomplish what they need to do, which is in essence to cut the land bridge. And we've talked about this, but I'll just say it again. It's my position and my belief that the land bridge cannot simply be threatened by Ukrainian forces. The land bridge has to be severed.
Yep.
Because then the Russians will really recognize that Crimea is in play, and that'll freak them out. And that will put Putin. That's going to put Putin in a very, very bad situation. If you saw my last vlog from Odessa, no Russian leader maintains, no Russian leader loses what Catherine the Great absorbed into the Russian Empire and stays on the throne in the Kremlin. Putin's clock is ticking. Mm-hmm. And when the Russians realize that Crimea truly is potentially going to be lost, there's going to be a huge upheaval. I mean, you think Solovyev and all the idiot pundit class in Moscow are belligerent now. Wait till you see what happens when everybody recognizes, oh my God, the Ukrainians might take Crimea back.
Right.
They're going to lose it. They're going to lose it. So that's what I'm hoping they'll be able to achieve with the counteroffensive, and they've got the time to do it. Hopefully they'll get the kit. If the ATACMS do come in, it won't be a long onboarding process because, like I said, it's very similar to what they're already using with the HIMARS. Let's go. Let's get those things over here. Let's get a few more kilometers in Ukraine's territory regained, and let's make sure the Russians realize that, when you start a war with the Ukrainians, you're taking on a formidable enemy.
Right. So. Well, and also the idea that that it was going to be easy, or that you took it so lightly, considering the idea that you were going to have to control cities, you were going to have to control, and they just didn't bother.
This was idiotic.
Yeah,
it was
from the start.
100%. And you're right, Hal. I think there was some sort of thinking in the Kremlin that if Trump had survived, had been reelected, it would have been easy. March into.
That was the plan.
Of course it would.
Right. They didn't alter the plan. They just realized. Kiev, yeah. Right. It'll take us a year, and Biden's
Zelensky
doddering.
Runs.
Yeah.
Or he gets killed or whatever. And then a Trump U.S. just goes, we don't care.
Yeah.
We don't care. We're not gonna get involved in that.
Right.
And then
it was the M14 I was thinking of, guys.
Mm-hmm. The M14.
If they can sever the M14,
the highway.
They will starve every Russian there to death.
Yep.
Because they have the German anti-aircraft systems that they can roll in. You cannot use fat, slow Antonovs or anything else to feed your Russian troops either ammunition or food. And the Sea of Azov is too shallow. You can't really use barges or anything like that to feed folks. They don't need to take Melitopol. If they can just sever the M14 by next spring, there won't be a Russian left in Crimea that is fit to fight. I mean, it just won't. And Phil's absolutely right. It's a clock, man. They're up against the clock, and that's why I'm so frustrated that the Abrams aren't already on the ground. They needed them now. I mean, I'm a big Biden supporter. I am, but that was too damn slow. That was just too damn slow. They needed those tanks now for this push.
The Abrams is tricky. But I generally agree with you, Paul. The Abrams is only tricky because it's a jet. It's a jet engine, which is a completely different beast from the Leopard or the Challenger or anything like that.
So servicing,
nevertheless,
all that.
But my general fallback position when it comes to Ukraine is give them every weapon that they ask for. I mean, there is not, save the F-16. There is no red line. And even the F-16 actually, the Russians, these red lines that Russia keeps saying it has, no, they can't beat Ukraine.
Right?
How are they going to beat NATO? And I mean, are we talking about nuking everything?
Right?
The Russians, they're not that. They're not. No, there's no, and also it's just.
Yeah, yesterday I forget the timeline on it's weird, but yesterday I think it was the United States and Armenia have announced a collective military exercise that we're doing with the Armenian military, and called Eagle Partner, which I cool. But they raised the American flag at this Armenian military base. You got to consider as far as Russia's position in Armenia between them and Azerbaijan, and trying to control that issue by basically playing both sides. and losing the fact that that's happening. If it wasn't going to happen while Trump was in office, but the fact that it's happening at all is fucking amazing. Like, it would have been that would have been the talk of 60 Minutes if we weren't in a world where Donald Trump has 91 fucking charges against him right now. This is, these are enormities in the shift in power. Russia, okay, so oil prices have gone up. They're close to $90. They'll probably peter out about 95 and go back down. America's production is the highest it has ever been. The only reason, the only reason we aren't totally self-sufficient is because we keep using more than we produce. We produce 18 million barrels a day. America produces 18 million barrels of oil a day. Saudi Arabia produces 10. Russia produces 7. They can manipulate the price, but on the supply side, and that's what they're doing to just keep the price up. Now, the price of Russian oil has gone up to $70 a barrel, which is above the cap, but they're still losing money because they can only transport it on ships that are not Russian. So the cost of transporting is so much fucking higher that the break-even price on Russian oil is like $85 a barrel. And they've been selling it at $50. They've lost $100 billion in oil revenue in the last 6 months. And so even with the price going up to a version that could have helped them out, like, they're fucked. There is no way these assholes fall back and decide to nuke the world. Not gonna fucking happen, because again, the oligarchs are all hedonists. They're not true believers. This isn't jihadis. They want to live and get a honeypot of their own.
Phil, back me up on this, but the second a nuclear weapon goes off, Putin's a dead man. Putin is dead. The oligarchs now are like, well, business is business, and we don't want to destroy our empire. But if Putin uses even a tactical nuke, they will claw through 14 inches of plate steel to remove every. I mean,
the second they use a nuke, then NATO gets involved directly, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. There's at that point, it's no, shut it down. I think you're right. I think the oligarchs right now and the Siloviki, the strongmen who support and got Putin into power and continues to support him, right now, the atmosphere in Moscow is not conducive to a really large-scale uprising that ousts Vladimir Putin. He loses Crimea, or you're right, uses a nuke, forget it. He's done.
Right.
He's already done. I don't see a way that Vladimir Putin stays in the Kremlin once this war is resolved, or frankly, even before that. Putin is not going to survive this war. This was a utterly stupid idea to do this war, and he is not going to survive it. The question is what happens. What is Russia after Putin? They've irrevocably lost Ukraine. They're never going to have. I mean, my God, they're never going to have Ukraine again. And that is a huge part of their power. I mean, even Lenin, when he rose to power and created the USSR, before it was the USSR, when it was just Soviet, communist Russia, the first thing Lenin said was, there is no Soviet Union without Ukraine. We have to take this back, because they'd lost it in the collapse of the Tsarist Empire.
But Phil,
Putin does not survive losing Ukraine, and he already has.
To agree with exactly what you're saying, let's say that Putin gets his wet dream, and everybody says, "Okay, we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to draw the lines right where they are." He's lost Ukraine. Poroshenko, that type of leader, those types of businessmen are done in Ukraine. Everything has moved western.
If you have even a whiff of Russia on you, you are not doing business in Ukraine.
Right.
Who does business with a nation that has conducted ethnic cleansing, that has destroyed trillions of dollars? I mean, if Ukraine and the Ukrainians didn't hate Russia before, they sure do now. They've lost it. They've lost Odessa, they've lost Kharkiv, they've lost Kiev. Of course, there will be a country called Ukraine after this war. This was stupid. It was an ill-advised adventure that maybe Putin felt himself painted into a corner to do, but regardless, it doesn't matter.
He got high on his own supply.
Yeah.
He got high on his own supply. He started to believe his own bullshit. There was a lot of
stuff in COVID. I think you're right. I think there was a lot of stuff that happened.
That isolation.
COVID, that isolation that happened. I have a buddy of mine who's a Russian journalist, and he told me about 2 years ago, he told me that the inner circle in the Kremlin were freaking out before the invasion, the full-scale invasion, during kind of the code. Do you remember like 21 when COVID was kind of still there, but anyhow, this Russian journalist tells me he has a source within the inner circle in the Kremlin, and they're freaking out because they can't control who talks to Putin, because Putin's in his bunker, basically deathly afraid of contracting COVID. And he's doing all these Zoom calls and stuff. Because when people had to physically come to the Kremlin, the guys who surround Putin could insulate him and could control who talks to Putin. But Putin on his own in the bunker with a Zoom, talking to whoever he wants to, and they had no control over it. I think you're right, Paul. I think there was a lot of
so what you're saying, Bill Maher and Vladimir Putin fell down the same rabbit hole.
Yes.
Oh yeah. No, but what I was talking about getting high on his own supply is Russia for years has pulled that bullying routine. Oh, we're badass and this and that. Don't mess with Russia. That's gone. And that's why Putin did this. It's going to be a 3-day war. We're going to, and sure, the initial assault, nobody was prepared for it. They did great, but they could not fight a sustained war. They just cannot do it. And he was high on his own supply, By
the way,
he was high on his own supply. He believed.
Breaking news: as we're on, Kadyrov is in a coma, according to the GUR. Kadyrov, the head of the Chechnyan, Kadyrovites or whatever.
Who's that attributed to?
The GUR, Ukrainian intelligence. They said the head of Chechnya's kidneys are failing, according to them. That he's got kidney failure.
I shouldn't. Yeah, I mean, but he's a horrible.
Yeah, you should. The guy's a freaking animal. Yeah.
The
guy's an animal.
He really is. I mean, that's an awful way to go, but
not any worse than some of the ways he made other people go. Again, he's one of these guys who was like, along with the Wagnerites, smashing people's heads with sledgehammers.
Nowhere was he crueler than in his own country. What he did to fellow Chechens when he rose to power was horrific. I mean, this is what Anna Politkovskaya, who was a very famous Russian journalist who was killed in the kind of early days of Putin's rise. It's thought that she was probably killed because she was looking into Kadyrov and what the Chechens were doing as supported by the Kremlin.
Right.
And then Politkovskaya led to other journalists being murdered, and the ripple effect, that's 20 some odd years ago. And that all stems from Kadyrov and Putin. It's all coming home to roost.
That's the thing about Putin, the kidney, man. If you fuck with the kidney, the kidney fucks back.
The fascinating thing about what you're talking about there, Hal, is there's no next in line after this Kadyrov. There isn't. His daddy had power. His daddy was actually fought Russia, and then Kadyrov did a flip and made a deal.
Kids.
But they're not. They have no
teenagers
power
are in their early 20s.
Yeah.
Well, it also doesn't matter because without their patron in the Kremlin, they don't survive.
Right.
The
what happens in Chechnya? What happens in Chechnya when there's a power vacuum in Russia? Same thing with the Georgian territories. Is there a moment, are at this point, I can't imagine that with all the issues that Georgia has, that they're not like going, okay, if this fucker falls, we're going to push back to get our territory. Just count on it, guys, because there's not going to be anybody coordinating the fight. So let's just plan on if the Ukrainians, and we'll be in contact with them, if the Ukrainians take Crimea and the sharks are circling Putin, now's a good time for us to fight back and take back the land in Georgia. There is absolutely no reason why that might not happen.
No, I suspect
Viktor
it will.
Orban.
Yeah,
And Viktor Orban.
I think Orban.
If Putin dies,
right, Paul. I think
Orban swings from a rope.
Yeah, Orban.
That,
I think we find out more about what happened in 2016, hopefully. I mean, it won't be like 91 when the Soviet Union fell apart and they opened up all their archives.
No, but we'll be in there.
But
we'll be in there.
There's going to be, I mean, I don't know what happens to the Russian Federation. I really don't.
Right.
And I think this
they'll call it Russia, but it'll basically be, Moscow, St. Petersburg passing as a country. And then the rest of the territory, China's already putting dibs on part of it. The Japanese will take back the Kuril Islands, or is that right? That's and then
the Kuril Islands,
Kuril Islands. And then I bet North Korea decides,
even maybe.
Yeah, they want to expand north a little bit, take a little bit of territory just for the fuck of it. Is possible.
No,
people don't understand
Russia,
how much the Urals,
St. Petersburg, Moscow, Rostov, maybe as far east as Ekaterinburg.
Right.
And everything everything west of the Urals is Slavic. Everything east of the Urals is that country disintegrates, man. That country disintegrates. It does.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, the other idea, here's the plan. You're sitting here, and this is a good one for the chat room as well. We've got about 7 minutes left in the show to wrap this up, but I want to remind everybody to check out Philip and Texas Paul's channels. Follow them on all your social medias, wherever they may be, and get their perspective, because it's terrific and it's different than mine, and it's important that we, it's like diversity in sort of perspective is our strength. As long as we're all, I think, walking in the same direction towards supporting democracy in this regard. You don't have to agree with me on what's good in a democracy. Just as long as you support democracy, I'm cool. We're cool. And these guys have a great perspective. So please do that. The other thing is like, what do you do if you're a Western power? And Russia, has a bunch of fucking nukes and all this other stuff. Some of them in disrepair, and that at best would make a good suitcase bomb if they managed to make it. Somebody was able to escape with it through Kazakhstan into Afghanistan or some shit like that. What do? Do you drop a bunch of fucking James Bonds on the ground or strike teams on these sites when everything's in fucking chaos, and secure the sites, shut them down, nullify them? Destroy the rockets themselves, blow the things up on top. That's a huge thing. That is a huge question. These, like, the idea that this stuff would be in the,
and they've got to be working on it. They've got to be working on it.
Yeah.
You buy them.
Not.
You buy
I'm
them.
Sure, the Pentagon
you spend $100 billion and you buy them.
Right. Yeah. Sure. You become the top buyer on the market.
I am sure that right now, in intelligence centers around the Western world, that question is looming very large.
Yeah.
And people with real serious expertise in this kind of stuff are already gaming this out and mapping this out.
Because we can always use the Jewish space lasers, but
well, it is almost an inevitability.
Right.
First off, I don't see Russia winning this war. I don't see Russia benefiting from this war. They don't keep Crimea. Nope. They don't keep the land bridge. That means that it is a humiliating defeat for Russia. Russia then has a massive upheaval in Moscow because, as I say, no Russian leader survives losing what Catherine took. And then we're in an uncharted territory, which we shouldn't be in. But because everything was constantly kicked down the road after 91, these are the same questions we had in 91. And then Putin comes into power and we're kind of like, we don't like him, but he's an authoritarian and he's keeping Russia stable.
Right.
And I argue, and I'm not the only one. I know that there were tons of people who study Russia, that's their entire living, have been saying the same thing, which was basically, we didn't address this and we should have. This should not have surprised us. 91 surprised us so much, and then we didn't sin, but then the carpetbaggers went in, and then Putin came in, and we kind of thought we could get by with Putin. No, man, we should never have played ball with Putin.
Right.
Never, ever. And it's been this thing looming on the horizon, and now it's here. And we better prep for it, because they're going to lose this war.
Yeah.
And things are going to get really weird in Russia.
Yeah.
Let me ask Hal, let me ask you this, because this is your purview, man, the physics. Aren't we just a little bit better off now, though, with the whole nuke game? Because tritium doesn't last that long.
Yeah. Well, they don't.
You have to replace it.
There are two
and
things.
It's expensive as hell.
Maintaining, like, as far as money, is one of the reasons why everybody says that, Reagan bankrupt the USSR, which was arguably part of the strategy, was the idea of get them in a race that they have to best us because they're a bunch of macho dickheads, and it's easy to bait them into spending a bunch of money to do this that they don't have. We have it, they do not. And we can maintain our nukes, and then you don't even need as many as you think you do to destroy the world 10 times over. That's the thing. But they keep ratcheting up their numbers, and they spend all this money. But look, if their guns don't work, and those are the first things you use in a war because guys are selling off ammo and parts and not servicing them, and there's no gun oil and all that kind of shit, the fuck kind of disrepair do you think the nukes are in? They haven't sold off the fucking, you can use parts of those rockets for jets and all kinds of other stuff. You can use the metal for other things. Like, the idea that those things aren't just trash cans with basically a grenade underneath them at this point is an obvious problem. The other thing is post 1991, do you fucking think the United States after the Cold War didn't move in there and put in malware, because our computer guys were far ahead of their guys as well? That, how do you know, as Vladimir Putin, that you push the button and it doesn't just rain all of your nukes on Moscow? I'm dead serious. How do you know that? You can't. You fucking can't. You might think
it never comes to that.
No, I know that, but I'd say that's another hitch in his get along. That's another thing that would slow that response. The other thing is that a lot of these things were never good to begin with. They were for show, like Chinese ghost cities. So they'll have missile sites, and they'll have a loose amount of nuclear material. So if you do a satellite scan of the area, you'll go, yep, there's nuclear material there. But it's not refined. It's just enough to give off the radiative signal, so they go, oh shit, the Russians have all these nukes everywhere, when a lot of it's not even formed in. That's why a bunch of them didn't go into the wind in fucking 91. Remember, that was the big fear, that a bunch of these, like, oh my god, these nukes so close to the Kazakhstan border and all this stuff, they're just going to grab one and run off with it. Well, why didn't they?
That's why the Ukrainians don't have nukes.
Right. Well, the Ukrainians gave them up, and Clinton said recently that was a mistake making them do that. That's debatable, because Yanukovych with nukes is fucked up. So I get it. Yeah. But right? So I don't necessarily think that after 91 everything was fucking hunky dory. As a matter of fact, I think the point was to get everybody in the Russian Federation to start dismantling all their shit, and they were just going to do Russia last, which is a mistake. You should have done it first. Like, you guys aren't who you were. You need to get rid of all this shit, or we're not going to trade with you, period. If you want to sell fucking anything, if you don't want your people to just live off what you got, if you want to be part of the international community, they got to go before that. But they were kind of like working their way in, trying to be nice. But I don't think you trust that system. If you're Vladimir Putin, you don't trust that it works in the first place, that it's not aimed at your own fucking head. And then afterwards, like you said, buy them up and dismantle them. Just go, hey, Russia, we're going to give you $100 billion, or take it off your tab in the rebuild of Ukraine. Give us your nukes and you won't have to pay this money, and we'll just dismantle them. We'll get rid of them. And you guys can go back to trying to be good, like, citizens of the world instead of scaring the fuck out of everybody. Because I got to say, mutual assured destruction, MAD, has been an umbrella under which Russia controls everybody. They start shit, and then anybody tries to push back on them, they're like, what do you want to do? Start a nuclear war? And you're like, all right, let them destroy Georgia. Let them murder a bunch of people. Let them rape a bunch of people. Let them burn down stuff. Let them have our base that we built in Syria to protect the Kurds. Let them have it, because if we don't, they're going to nuke us, and da-da-da. And it's the exact opposite of what it was supposed to do. It's like the idea of the Nobel Peace Prize was based around, dynamite's so awful, no one will ever want to fight another war. It's like just as naive and stupid.
If there is a silver lining to this ugly, ugly last couple of years of this war, it's that the veil has been lifted, and it's like, no, screw you, man.
That's
Screw
right.
you, Moscow.
Nope.
We're not
The
going
trust
to
is
play
gone.
that game anymore.
We toyed around with the idea of trust just to try and make good. Everybody was doing make good for a long time.
Nobody wanted it to come here.
No.
Nobody wanted to get to this point.
Yeah.
Except the Moscovites.
I'm sitting there looking at something from the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, and we have a fraction of the nuclear arsenal that Russia claims to have. That's just fact. We don't have as many missiles, but our projected cost for just maintaining these missiles, so that they A, will fire, and B, their payload is actually what we claim it is $60 billion a year.
Right.
Do you think Russia is really maintaining these Topol ICBMs? Folks, you see the trucks with the ICBMs in every freaking parade. That's a Topol. Do you think they're really freaking maintaining their arsenal? It's not happening. It's just not happening. And you see it in Ukraine. I mean, Phil, tell them, man, the stuff they rolled into Ukraine with was crap.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse.
It's getting worse. And no, look,
if you're meeting with Kim Jong-un, you're in trouble. Ask Donald Trump.
Oh God, if you're going with your hat in hand to Kim Jong-un, there's something very seriously wrong.
Exactly.
Look, I've said this from the beginning. I'll keep saying it. They are absolutely 100% going to lose this war. And when they lose this war, I was saying this in Lviv, Hal. Do you remember when we used to do stuff and I was out in Lviv? I was saying this back then. Russia's going to lose this war.
Yes.
And when it does, it's going to have a real serious crisis on its hand because it doesn't know what it is if it isn't an empire.
All the people,
all the people who said this is a tragedy.
They did it themselves. Self-inflicted wound. So extraordinary that all the folks who say Alex Jones is a Mossad agent and he's actually part of the CIA because he wouldn't have been allowed to talk this shit for a long time if he wasn't saying exactly what the deep state wants him to say, all that shit. Those people are going to turn on Vladimir Putin once he destroys what's left of Russia with this bullshit and go, he was actually always a Western plant. They put him in here to do this shit so that they could undermine us. Like that kind of watch it. Watch for it. The tankies are going to turn on Putin at one point, and it's going to be...
They have to justify it somehow.
Right.
They'll have to fit it into the last thing because I know we got to go. But the last thing I do want to say, and this is something I've said repeatedly, but I'll reiterate it again. We in the West have got to demystify Russia.
Yes.
Russia is not this massive, powerful, integral part of geopolitics and this irreplaceable nation that is on the UN Security Council. Blah blah blah. Nah.
Oh yeah.
Screw that. Can't hear you. We lose you, Paul.
No, I'm saying, listen to this man.
I see. Good. Yeah.
Listen to this man.
Yeah.
No, we have to demystify Russia. We have to stop because
same thing with China.
We all grew up with this idea of Russia as this like, it's like
a lot of pearl
sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It's a given. It's not a given. Russia is not. Russia is the creation of a series of conquests by a bunch of bagmen who took their money from the Mongol horde back in the 10th century when they screwed over Kiev. And they got rich off of that, and they got powerful by conquest. Yes. That is
selling millions of white people into slavery to the hordes of Genghis Khan, like that for the people
Russia,
in the cheap seats.
Fuck the idea of this great nation state called Russia. I love my Russian friends. I have respect for Russian history. I have respect for Russian culture to a certain extent.
Yes,
but it's not this nation which they portray themselves to be. They're gonna fall apart, man. It's gonna be.
You know what I tell people along those lines?
Yeah,
Phil. You know what I tell people along those lines? Go down and look at a bridge near you and see the state of disrepair it's in. And we have money. We have money in our governments, and look at the shit that's happening here. Look at the state of the condition of our infrastructure.
Well, you're
now
not gonna be able to
imagine
say that
what's
much
going
longer,
on in Russia,
Texas Paul.
where they suck every damn dime out of it.
Yeah, it all gets
also, who thinks about the Byzantine Empire? At one point, the Byzantine Empire was considered to be this, it would never collapse. It would never fall apart. Who even thinks about the Byzantine Empire anymore?
Right.
Russia is not an inevitability. Russia is not a fait accompli that has to exist. Whatever the Muscovites do when they lose this war, it probably will not be the Russian Federation. And I know that there are people in the West who are prepping for that, but we need to, as a general populace, need to recognize that when they lose this war, which they are going to do, shit's going to get really, really weird inside Russia.
Right, it is.
And shit's gonna get weird, man.
Yeah,
This is not the crisis. This is not the crisis. This is a war that Russia is going to lose
because they have the other shit that's going on: Africa, Syria, Georgia, Chechnya, Armenia, Azerbaijan,
absolutely,
Hungary, all these places where they have influence places. Fucking
the Arctic.
Transnistria, the fucking Moldova border, all that shit is gonna fall like the fucking Ottoman Empire collapsed, and it's not gonna be pretty because there's gonna be a lot of people near those folks. Think of it around Georgia, think around Syria, think around those places where I'm been taking your shit.
Freaking Cuba, man.
2 fucking decades.
North Korea, DPRK.
Yeah. That without that back and forth, they're kind of screwed. Thank you guys for being on today. This was really cool. I appreciate you being with me. It's
Sorry
kind
I couldn't
of amazing.
join you on Wednesday.
That's okay. No, it's nice because I was glad. I had to do a little bit of finagling to get a 2-screen shot where I could get both of you on at the same time. But I was happy to do it.
It's great to see you, Phil.
Even in my laid up state.
Paul. Drop me a line anytime you want to. Do a repeat of our chat as well. So
follow and support these two gentlemen in every way that you possibly can. Spread the word because they're right and so am I. And it's interesting that the message that's actually correct about this circumstance start getting out over the tanky horse shit that we're competing against, which has a much bigger megaphone. So whatever support you can give to do, is welcome. If you can't, at the very least, just we'll help you dunk on stuff. And I want to leave you with 2 words: diamond prosecutors. Anybody who gives you shit about the Shokin bullshit, just throw diamond prosecutors. Make them go look that stuff up. I'm going to bring that up tomorrow when we're on the air on the radio, Phil. When you come on with us tomorrow for the radio show, I want to talk about Shokin's diamond prosecutors because it's a fucking the Ukrainians hated these fucking guys. Oh, it's great. Anyways, we'll get into another hour if I'm not careful. So thank you guys for being with me today.
Take care, Paul. See you, Hal.
Take care. Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Right. Thanks again, Hal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Texas Ball. Thank you, Philip Bittner. We'll see you guys again very, very soon. And thank you, chat room. And I made it through. And yes, I'm getting better. I'm definitely getting better. My neck's not nearly as stiff as it was. I'm good. I'm getting there. It's a healing process. And I see you guys going, oh, poor guy. And I appreciate that. And I love that. But I will heal just fine. And I am healing just fine. So know that. I'm taking good care of myself. Don't worry about it. And I will see you guys later this afternoon for a little bit more of the Megyn Kelly Trump interview, which is apparently even more embarrassing as it goes on, and then a bunch of other stuff. So anyways, oh yes, Boston Brian was in the chat today. I want to have him on. Let's see, when can we? Well, he's got to work. We got to figure out how to get him. Maybe, I don't know. We got to figure out the schedule so we can get Boston Brian on and not interfere with his other work. I'm going to talk to you about it, Boston Brian, if you're still in there. We'll work it out. We're going to make it happen. Yes, at Tony Michaels, thanks for jumping in here, by the way. Sometimes he always raids us as we're ending because we're on at the same time on these days. Anyways, love you guys. Talk to you later. Take care of yourselves. Take care of everybody else. Take care of the kidney. What happened? What just happened? Anybody? What was that? Does anybody feel that? Something? Chip?